With OTAs around the corner for the Saints, Chris Olave is once again being mentioned in trade rumors. We'll talk about the latest on number 12 and why I don't believe he's going anywhere right here on the Straight Up Saints podcast.
You're listening to the Straight Up Saints podcast.
What is up, Who Dat Nation? Welcome inside another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Rosvoglu, and as always, the Straight Up Saints podcast is brought to you by Vicknair Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured in any kind of accident, car, truck, 18-wheeler, hurt offshore, Vicknair handles it all. Give them a call at 504-500-1111 for a free consultation. They'll always fight for the win. So over the weekend, we got some interesting rumors regarding Chris Olave and his future with the New Orleans Saints, and while I started off my tease by telling you guys I don't believe he's going to get traded, I do believe it's worth us covering because the rumors are there, and they're from reputable sources, specifically from PennLive and their Steelers beat over there, and they've actually done a lot of great work. But what I found interesting was they said the Steelers are among teams that have reached out to the Saints about Chris Olave, which I think makes a lot of sense. The Saints are a team that are clearly in rebuild mode, and if you were to say, hey, who do you think is the most valuable asset on the Saints right now? I'd say Chris Olave. He's still not even in the prime of his career on his rookie contract. We know he's a really good player when healthy. So he does make sense to be the most valuable asset. And if the Saints are a rebuilding team that are looking to just accumulate draft picks, if I'm a team, I call them and say, hey, you're probably not winning anytime soon. I don't know what you need a high-priced receiver for. How about some picks? And you can continue to rebuild your program, and we can get an impact player in Chris Olave. So logically, I get why the Steelers would call, and I get why other teams would call, and especially Pittsburgh. You got rid of George Pickens, who I think him and DK are such similar receivers that you bring in Olave hypothetically. Man, you know, DK's that physical specimen of a wide receiver, and Olave's kind of like that technician type, great route runner. Doesn't have to be over the middle of the field as much with DK. You can kind of keep him on the outside. So I think it would make a lot of sense. That said, the Saints reportedly told the Steelers no, and I am not shocked at all. And frankly, I am relieved because I think for the New Orleans Saints, there may come a point in time where next year, guys, I could sit here and say, maybe they should trade Chris Olave. But right now, as of this May, with the 2025 season, just, where are we, 3-4 months away? I don't think it makes any sense to even entertain the thought of trading Olave because the whole point of this year are two things. You got to figure out if you have a quarterback that can be potentially the face of the franchise, and if not, at least be your starter. And you got to figure out if Kellen Moore can coach. And by that, I mean be a head coach. We know he's a good offensive coordinator. And right now, if we look at the Saints roster, I know that Alvin's still more than capable of being a productive player. I know Rashid Shaheed is a playmaker, although, what is the high end to his potential? I don't know yet. Tight end group, obviously, there's not a lot to love there. And outside of Shaheed and Olave, not a lot to love, at wide receiver. So the goal is to be competitive, and the goal is to figure out if you have something in rookie quarterback Tyler Shuck. It would make absolutely zero sense in the world to say, hey, by the way, we traded away the best weapon that we have, who's only played 3 seasons, and when healthy does get over 1,000 yards receiving per season minimum, and we believe has not even, in my opinion, hit his full potential. Because we've seen Chris Olave have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons to start his career, and that was with Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael, and then Clint Kubiak, but it's just Pete Carmichael as the play caller, and with a quarterback situation that, let's be honest, was kind of a mess the last couple of years. So for Olave, I think very highly of him. Do I think he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver in this league? Probably not, but that's because we're already, this league is filled with just incredible playmakers. I mean, Jamar and Justin Jefferson, just off the top of the head, like those are guys that are going to be in the top 5 for years to come. So maybe he doesn't end up in the top 5. But do I believe Olave can be a top 10 guy in the league during the prime of his career? Without a doubt. And I think for New Orleans right now, you picked up his 5th-year option. So you have him under control for the next 2 years. Why in the world would I even remotely consider trading him right now when, in my opinion, his value today is a little bit less than what I'd like it to be because he's coming off a season where the production was down because he only played in a handful of games. He missed a lot of time this year due to injury. So why would I trade a valuable asset off an injury-riddled season? Now, you can have the counterpoint and say, man, I worry about the concussion history. I worry about how long he can play this game. And I understand that. And they're fair concerns, especially for Olave. And, We've seen him take some nasty hits, and obviously the human aspect of it is like, I don't know how many more times I want to see Chris Olave get laid out. It's tough to stomach. That said, if he can put together a full season where he's healthy, he's going for over 1,000 yards. He's going to look like a damn good playmaker. And then next year, you can make your decision as to whether or not Olave is part of your long-term plan and whether or not you want to commit a lot of money to him. And the beauty of that is the fifth-year option is you don't have to worry about him hitting the open market next year. You have him under contract, and then you can make your decision, hopefully when the value's higher. Because according to PennLive's report, the Saints asking price at minimum would be a second-round pick, which makes sense. I think that's where, to me, that's fair value for Olave right now today, given the circumstances. He missed time, all that. Understandable. If he goes out there and has a great year for the Saints, A, I think you got to consider paying him, obviously. But B, the value to me is going to go up higher than it would be. And again, we are talking about a wide receiver that is only 24 years old, that I think in terms of route running, in terms of just being able to check off a lot of boxes, Olave does that. So maybe there comes a time next year where I look at the Saints and they're coming off a, 3-4 win season. And I say, you know what, maybe if Olave's value is really high and you can trade him for a late first, just do it, because are you going to commit $30+ million to a wide receiver when you're in a full rebuild? Probably not. Maybe that's something that you just don't do as a franchise and you move on from him. But at least if you give yourself that grace period to see how this upcoming season plays out, that value, in my opinion, is going to go up. And maybe forget about the trades. Olave balls out this season. You get to see that connection with Shuck, Rattler, whoever's the quarterback. But for this hypothetical, let's go with Shuck because you did invest a top 40 pick. What if Shuck looks like a pretty decent quarterback and Olave and him clearly have a connection? And all of a sudden, us Saints fans have a reason outside of just being diehard fans to want to watch every game, to want to watch every possession on offense and see how they move the chain. So there is that, granted the optimistic aspect of it, that avenue that you can kind of look through and have that glimmer of hope. And if you were to trade Olave before the 2025 season even starts, where does this offense go? I have questions about this offense. Even if Olave is healthy for all 17 games, you take him out of the equation, you pluck him out of the picture. A, I don't know who's going to be your top target. B, that is a lot to ask from your rookie quarterback. And C, you are not just back to the drawing board of needing to draft a wide receiver. It becomes such a dire need that next year, in my opinion, that might have to be your first round pick. So you kind of, in my opinion, are hustling backwards if you trade Chris Olave. The Saints don't have a lot of good players right now. They just don't. That's the truth of the matter. So to hypothetically trade one right now after just 3 seasons when you picked up his 5th-year option, don't make any sense to me. It does not make any sense to me. So I'm a big believer in you go into the season, you're playing Chris Olave for all 17 games, God willing that he's healthy for all of them, and let's kind of see how this all unfolds. I think he'd give you at least 1,000 yards because that's what he's proven when he's healthy. I think best case scenario, he gets a strong connection with your young quarterback, and then us Saints fans have something to be optimistic about. But like I said, you don't want to snuff that out before the season even starts. And I don't believe that's going to be the case. All the signs point to that. But it's an interesting conversation because if I had to guess, the Saints will probably get a couple more calls. I don't think this is something where they tell the Steelers no, and then that's it. No one else calls. Because every player has a price, and I think for the Saints, when they're in the middle of the rebuild, you listen. That's just kind of how this league works. And some fans might get frustrated by it. Some fans might ask questions about it. But that's just the reality. Every player's got a price. Every team's willing to negotiate. And I'm sure if a team comes out there out of nowhere and says, hey, 2nd-round pick and a 3rd-round pick for Olave, maybe the Saints' ears kind of perk up and you listen. And that's understandable. But as of today, if you're telling me would I flip Olave for a 2nd-round pick, maybe I'm in the minority. I don't know where fans are all going to kind of fall on this. And as always, I'm going to ask you guys to leave your thoughts in the comment section because I am curious where you guys kind of stand on this situation. I'm not trading Olave, especially because a team like the Steelers are going to try to win as many games as possible. And let's say they get Rodgers and they're not great, but they go 10-7. Do I want to trade Olave for like the 66, not 66, but like high 50s, the high, 50th pick, 52nd pick? To me, I'm not. That's just not something that's super enticing to me. I rather just hold on and hope that this player ends up being a part of my future, or I just trade him for a first-round pick the year after. That's the way I view it. I'm going to stand on that, and that is that. But with OTAs coming up, I can't see the Saints even considering it. I think Kellen Moore has spoken very highly of Chris Olave, and that's another thing that factors into this. I mentioned it before, and part of it was just me having that negative connotation on it because obviously you guys know where I stand on the Dennis Allen era Saints. And it just was so frustrating to watch. We've seen Chris Olave have success in Pete Carmichael's offense. Now we see him in Kellen Moore's. Let's see how that plays out. And by the way, Kellen Moore, I know he's been very positive about this entire team. When we talked about Chris Olave, that guy's pulling out the most glowing adjectives possible to talk about his skill set. So I am intrigued to see how it unfolds. He's clearly going to be the focal point of the pass game. Let's see how it works out. Because we've seen Olave, in my opinion, where that's the worst it's going to get. To me, that's the worst it's going to get is an 1,100-yard receiver in a Pete Carmichael offense. That is the way I view it. Can he go for 1,300 yards this year? Maybe. It's possible if he plays all 17. So we'll see what happens with Chris Olave. I don't think he's going anywhere, though. I wouldn't trade him if I'm the Saints. I'm rolling into year 4, hoping that it works out for the best. And then you make your financial decision next offseason, whether you got to pay him $30 million, whether you don't want to pay him $30 million, and you kind of go from there. But I'm interested to know what you guys think. So let me know in the comment section below. Where do you stand on this Chris Olave situation? Are you adamantly against trading him? Are you open to the idea? Are you on the complete opposite side of the coin where you go, man, he's gotten a lot of concussions. I'd be open to trading him right now. And I think maybe it's in the best interest of the Saints to say, hey, Steelers just traded away George Pickens. They're desperate to add another receiver. Here's the opportunity to make that move. I'd understand why you're feeling that way. Obviously, I'm not. But as always, guys, let me know in the comment section below. Make sure to subscribe to Boot Crew Media's YouTube page if you haven't already. We'll have more content from the Straight Up Saints podcast later this week, so you guys don't want to miss that. OTAs are opening up May 20th to the 22nd. Then they're going to take a little bit of a break as we got Memorial Day weekend coming up. Then they'll be back May 27th and then May 29th to the 30th. And then they'll have that little June session, and then they'll kind of put a bow on things till we get to training camp. So we'll have some Saints content. I'm sure we'll have some practice clips that all of us will kind of go wild over. That's the fun of it. And as always, regardless if it's a practice highlight, a post-practice comment, we'll have you covered here on the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation.